Hello, I'm Tara Brabazon.
And I'm Judy O'Connell.
And yes, we're back together for Judy and Tara Talk Tech. And our second session is titled Information Organisation, Referencing, Citation and Post-Endnote. Oh my goodness, very long title. But basically what we're arguing is we live in an age of information, the information age, but the question is how we organise that as undergraduate students, as postgraduate students and as staff. Now, I'm a big believer in note-taking. I think note-taking is a great skill and a skill we don't teach and explore enough. And I'm a bit of an old-fashioned girl with this, actually. When I have a source, whether it be an actual analogue book, paper, or whether it be a digital source, I put that here as I'm reading it, and I actually take independent notes on my laptop. So I separate the source and take independent notes that way. But I'm an old-fashioned girl, Jude.
Oh, no, not at all.
And I'm sure there are better ways to do that. But before we get to, I think, your great strategies to do that, shall we go to plagiarism for a minute? Let's go there, because we were just talking, as we were setting this gig up today, whether plagiarism is increasing or whether it's just our capacity to find it and locate it in students' work that's increased. The internet did not cause plagiarism.
No.
Has it made it easier?
It's facilitated plagiarism.
Right.
150%.
Right.
Because if we have students, or academics, or anyone for that matter, who writes well, who thinks clearly, it's an absolute snitch for them to find material and string it together beautifully as if it's their own. And we cannot identify that. The old trick of being able to look at a student's work and say, oh yes, that's obviously plagiarised, that bit doesn't read the same way. A good student knows how to adjust the text to make it all read as one voice. And that's the issue with plagiarism.
So, Jude, you are a pretty big believer, and you are convincing me of what Turnitin can do. Can you talk about what Turnitin is and what you think its role is?
Turnitin, of course, is a tool for checking against its own database of materials that have been submitted to see if information is duplicated, replicated, i.e. plagiarised. Now, it's not a perfect tool, and we're not offering it as a perfect solution, but I have found that it takes you 10 minutes to whack up the material from a cohort of students, and very quickly it will set up some red flags around material that's potentially plagiarised. You as an academic could quickly scan that and say, yeah, no, 3 bags full, whatever it is. But what it has done for me is picked up students almost at the end of their degree program who have obviously been plagiarising because Turnitin hasn't been used to do that filtering. It's been missed because they're good writers. I'm talking about the HDD type students here, and I've ended up having to fail a student who's been plagiarising a lot of the time and it hasn't been noticed. So Turnitin is a tool to help with that understanding, the academic understanding of the content and whether or not a student is actually able to articulate their own thoughts around a topic.
Jude, should we talk about intentionality? Because I think intentionality does have a role in plagiarism, in that if a student doesn't know how to take good notes and perhaps doesn't have the capacity to understand the difference between paraphrasing and plagiarism, seems to me the great problem.
Yes.
Then that's a skill issue, I think, that can be addressed through a whole series of other ways. But I think the intentionality in plagiarism needs to be addressed so that students know exactly what they're doing. I think they are different cases. One's about skill, one is literally about intellectual robbery.
That's
Are you happy to make that distinction?
Absolutely. And that's definitely why Turnitin isn't a final solution. It's just a tool to help you filter those sorts of decisions out about the material that students are writing. And of course one of the issues too is to what extent we embed in our programs the ability of the students to do the correct way of analysing literature and absorbing the information and critically analysing and putting that into their own writing. Just telling them to do it is not enough. Giving the structures around how to do that and how to do that perceptively is our job.
Exactly, and there's all sorts of mechanisms that we can use in assessment, whether it be an information scaffold, we get them to find citations, do annotated bibliographies, all those strategies are available to do that. And I think overtly teaching note-taking.
That's right.
You know, teaching that skill, don't assume they can do it. And you've got some great strategies, I know, Jude, to help those students control information and help their citation rates. What do you use to help your guys and gals?
Well, of course, there's the whole issue of the tech tools that we're talking about. What can you use to help them do that filtering of information, collect information, store it in different places and put it together as part of the crafting of their thinking and part of the crafting of their writing? There's a bunch of tools that we can use. But in the education field, of course, out there in the field, so to speak, one that is incredibly popular is the use of Evernote because of its multidimensional usage and the ability to share between cohorts or peers or students, for that case, material that's being collected. What it does is drill into that whole notion of curation, come back from that idea of curation to writing, reading, referencing, citation, building the academic understanding of material. It gets you past that. Here's the web, we can find it all, we can copy and paste it too. Here's the web, we can collect it, we can reflect on it, we can reference it, we can write about it. So you need to go the steps.
And I know on your list, you and I are both big believers in, say, academia.edu.
That's right.
How do you use academia.edu?
Oh, well, personally, I love to see what people are writing most recently, see the emerging literature that's relevant to my particular area of interest. Critical. You know, we're talking about so many channels. We have to be really savvy about which channels we choose and how we find that information. So, yeah, academia, I've lost that one.
Academia.edu.
Yeah, that one is very useful in that thing. Of course, there's also Google Scholar Alerts, which I like to use. And, of course, on the other side of that, the usage of Google Scholar for teaching our students how to work with citation and referencing.
And that's the other thing to say is Google Scholar has improved enormously in the last 5 years. I was an early believer in it. I think it was about Google becoming more complex and mature as an organisation, and I think that's great. But I think as an application, it has improved.
It has.
You're able to get dissertations, theses, conference papers. It's now, I think, a beautiful way of understanding and finding information, I think. And you can really subtly and carefully, so if you're after a particular search term for 2013, there it is. And it really allows you to be very current and up to date in your research. And perhaps we should talk about EndNote.
Not my favourite fellow.
Now, I didn't know this before Jude and I talked about this today, so that's why I called it post-EndNote, because I wanted to know if my mate Jude used EndNote.
No, I must admit I chose not to use it very quickly once I was introduced to it. And
interesting.
Yeah, look, I'm a digital user, I suppose, but I also like my tools to support my thinking. And for my money, EndNote wasn't doing that. It was purely a mechanical way of writing material and referencing it. That's not what I need, and that's not what any of us needs anymore. What we need are tools that actually help us find, filter and organise our information, and then happen to reference it and cite it as well. So that's the end product of quality information organisation. So, you know, it's nice to teach our students EndNote, it's great to give them the product, but how does that help us in an open resource, open access world? How does it help us deal with the issues of cross-functionality? It doesn't. So one of my favourite tools, and we can have a favourite tool, that's the thing.
Yes.
There isn't a perfect tool. One of my favourite tools is Zotero. It's open source. Yeah. It allows me to organise my information for various topics and generate a citation list as I require it. And of course Word has a plugin for it. So, hey, much better than EndNote from that point of view for my purposes. Might not suit yours, but I do recommend you have a look at it if you haven't. And I've got the chap's name here, Jason Pouquet, fantastic librarian who's put together some help guides for it, which you can pop onto your iPad and learn as much as you can about it.
Any other tools you wanted to talk through as being of great value to people?
Well, the tools around citation, of course, I just want to go back on that one because I think, you know, we need to make use of the official tools, as in curated and or organised tools by information professionals. You've got, of course, our very own Australian Trove, which people can use, which we can introduce our students to. Not only can you get your citation information from there, but you can get the copyright status of material that's in there. And we're talking about any kind, not just print materials, but sonic files and everything else as well. And you can also get a user activity around that. So in a sense, it's reverse engineering what referencing is about. It's about the value of resources. And of course in academic work, this is of importance. You need to work with information that's relevant. So for students, it's teaching them some of those ways of looking at material, not just from, oh, here's a resource and I better cite it, but really, how does it fit into their circle? Of course, our databases, we've got fantastic databases at CSU that we make available to students. Do we teach them how to use the citation tool in that? Do we teach them how to export the citation directly into their Zotero? I'm tipping that we don't.
Yeah.
And yet, what a fantastic way of streamlining your information organisation.
It really is.
So that's the name of the game, getting efficient and thoughtful about our practices.
She's fabulous, and can I also say on behalf of us both, use your librarian. Librarians are an incredibly important resource, an incredibly important profession, and if you're interested in information and information management, talk to a librarian.
That's it.
See you in the next
Goodbye
session.
all.